Okay, very good morning to all of you. Very good morning to all of you. So today we will concentrate on theory part, which is very important because we have been completed partially. The SQL has been completed, so preliminary SQL has been completed here. So that let me introduce what are the theoretical concepts of those points here. Let me introduce them. How many kinds of entity relationship algorithms or entity relationship models are available here? What are the components of those models? Let me introduce. So here you have uh, uh, unit number 2. Already we have discussed almost 60 to 70% of unit number 2 here, and the unit number 3 also we have been discussed many issues here. However, let me introduce these things here. So basically, so entity relationship model. What is entity? What is relationship? And how the relationships are being established as far as the database management system is being concerned. So these things are going to be discussed today, right away from today onwards. Okay. So here, basic components of entity relationship model are number 1 entities, number 2 attributes, and number 3 relationships. Okay, these are the 3 different kinds of so entity relationship kind of models are available here. So first of all, we'd like to concentrate on what is an entity and how many kinds of entities are available. So as far as entity relationship is being concerned. And number 2, what are attributes and how many kinds of attributes are available while talking something about physical design. So that relationships, how many number of relationships are available talking about so the physical design. Basically, entity relationship model is a blueprint of physical design. So before going to, create any kind of backend by any kind of people. So before going to do that particular operation, creation of tables, views, and synonym sequences and all those things. Before doing all these things, they have identified these are the different kinds of tables which have been probable tables which have been used to implement their system. That is the first point. And second point is these are the components of that particular entire system. So they have given one blueprint to the designers. They are implemented some blueprint to designers so that based on the blueprint they have to design so different kinds of so tables and relationships and whatever the things which have been happened while designing any kind of application here. So that is the main motto or motive of entity relationship diagram here. Let us consider, so what are different kinds of entities which are available here. Before going to take what is an entity, before going to take so define an entity here, let me write what is the entity here. Let me write somewhere else in notepad. Entity, so entity just means any object which is being existed in the real world. Already you have come across with your object-oriented programming using Java and C++ followed by Python also. So already you have come across all those. Thereby you have been created many number of objects, whatever it may be. So any realistic object, whatever the realistic object which is being existed in the real world is called as an entity. For example, let me consider in general point of view, so a cow. So cow is an object, a buffalo. So it is an object, a man. A man is a particular object, a cat. So cat is one particular object and a table. So table is another object, a cot, another object, something like that. Many number of objects are available. Okay. All these are considered as so entities as far as a database management system is being concerned. But in a database management system, these could not be. I mean, the names cow, buffalo could not be considered as direct entities. So here, how you have to define your entities in the sense, entities will be defined something like this. Student is an entity. Student is an entity, and so employee is an entity, and the department is an entity, and then many other things. A booking is another entity, and then um, electricity, electric, electricity, electricity, kind of electricity. So it is one kind of entity, and so on and so forth. Many different kinds of entities are there. And these entities must be always used to frame with several number of attributes. Okay, these entities must be framed with several number of attributes here. So then, how these entities could be defined here? I mean, represented in ER diagram here. In ER diagram, entities will be represented like this. So there are three different types of entities are available here. So entity type one will be, first entity type will be strong entity, and the second one is weak entity. So strong entity, weak entity, and the third one is very important one. The third one is so associate entity. These are the three different types of entities which have been available with not exactly database, ER model, entity relationship model. Strong entity and weak entity and associate entity. These are the three different types of entities here. Entity does means any object, whatever the object which is being existed in the real-time world or real world will be called as an entity. Okay. Then how could you represent an entity in so ER diagram? So ER diagram in the sense, normally this entity relationship model is a diagrammatic representation of your entire system. Your entire system is being maintained or represented in diagrammatic form. So within this particular diagrammatic form, how an entity can be represented here in the sense, entity could be represented with a rectangular box, something like this. Okay, rectangular box, something like this. So this rectangular box will be, let me open for the time being, let me open Winword. So it could be able to easily identify how the things are being happening here. Wait for a while before going to open this one. Okay, so this rectangular box will be so able to represent an entity. So it is entity. Okay, so within this one we do have three different types of categories. One is a strong entity, and second one is a weak entity, and third one is so associate entity. Associate entity. So three different types of entities are available here. So here, as far as this three point of view, everything must be represented with this particular, rectangular box only. But there is a small distinction between these two. Let me give you what are these. Before going to take this one, let us take the definitions for strong entity. Strong entity definition will be, so an entity which can have its values without without referring referring any other entity. So it should not be refer any other entity. Okay, it should not be taken to refer any other entity. Such kind of entities will be called as strong entities. Otherwise, an entity which does have its own values. And in other words, you could also specify something like this: values of an entity which does have its own values, and entity which does have its own values. So, for example, if either of these two, So an entity which have its values without referring any other entities. So you are not supposed to refer any other entities while you are entering some kind of data into this one here. Such kind of entities are called as strong entities. And otherwise, you could also specify an entity which does have its own values. Let me give you one specific explanation here. So let me connect it to connect class one. Oh, sorry, class ONE. So class ONE. Invalid username. Okay. Connect copy. Okay, however. So let me create one particular table here. The table will be so gas agency system. Let us take into consideration gas agency system. Normally in gas agency system, so you must be open your account at our gas agency system, followed by, so as and when you require, you have to book your cylinder to the gas agency system. So let me create so that particular thing here for a while for your kind consideration. So create a table, so gas underscore master, gas master, okay, which does have consumer number, CUST or customer number, so which is some number of 5, and which does have defined as primary key, which is a primary key, and so customer name, so var 2 of some 20, which is not null, okay. Then so CUST ADDR, customer address var CHR, var 2 of some 20 or 50, whatever it may be, not null, it should be. So date of open, D open, so which is date, and then okay, date of open. So number of cylinders, NOCYL, number of cylinders. So number of some 2. So these are the points here. I'd like to take gas master, something like this. So look at this here. We'd like to consider here. So this customer number is a primary key. While we are entering some kind of data into this particular table, you must always concentrate that customer number will be always been existed and which is unique. So that is why I have given as primary key here. You are always expecting to have the name and address also. We are always expecting the address also. When it was opened, yes, it has been. How many number of cylinders are associated with your number? Okay. So let me introduce some kind of data here. So here I'd like to enter some kind of data, insert into table name is GAS underscore MAST or gas master. So values of first one is customer number, ampersand CUST underscore envelope. I'd like to take some data as continuous manner here. And second one is ampersand CUST name, customer name, then followed by customer address. It's also character, so that ampersand CUST, so ADDR, then followed by date open. So it's also date, so that we would like to take into consideration of single quotes. So ampersand T open, okay, date open, comma, so ampersand NO underscore CYL, number of cylinders. Okay, NO, not 0, O underscore CYL. Okay, so based on this one, customer number is 100. For example, let me take 100. Customer name is Hari, and customer address is Macharla, and the date of open is today's date, SYS DATE, today's date only. Number of cylinders will be 2. Okay, what is that? Okay, I'm sorry. So here's some small mistake which was happened. Let me execute one more time here. System date could not be taken into consideration over there. 100. So Hari, and then followed by Macharla. So today the date will be 08. So 7 in the sense JUL. So 2020. So 2020 here. Okay, and followed by number of cylinders. Yes, one row has been created. Look at this. So you have one particular constraint here. That constraint is primary key. If you fail to access this primary key, then the gas master will be restricted to enter the data. That's all. There is no other point here. Okay, if you are supposed to enter data into gas master, it should not be so refer any kind of other tables. It does have its own values. If you are trying to enter one more kind of data here, let me say, so one more kind of data. Already number 100 has been given to Hari. Now let me take 101. So then Raju, something like this, and Macharla, and today's date is 08 JUL, so 2020, and the number of cylinders is only one. So here, whatever the constraints you have defined on each and every column, everything has been satisfied here. It is unique, and we have provided some data here. We also provided some data here. Here we will also provide some data, and 101 is unique. We have given the value and which is unique because previous value is 100. Right now it is 101. So no restrictions are. Restrictions are fully followed by this particular table, so that row has been created. It doesn't require, it does not, refer any other kind of data, any other kind of tables data. So such kind of tables are called as a strong tables. Strong tables in the sense you are very much free to enter data at any moment of time without referring any value. Okay. Let us look into this particular data. So an entity which does have its own values without referring any entities, it does have its own values. Such kind of entities are called as strong entities. Normally, strong entities have been created something like this. So they will be represented in our okay, let me introduce this one. So where it is? Yeah. So your strong entity can be represented something like this. In this way, you have to represent in our database. Entity relationship diagrams. So something like this. So it is having its solid line, and which is the line will be only one line. Okay, single line. It is called as the strong entity. And whatever the data you have for type here, that must be in all caps, all capitals, STRONG. So ENTITY, strong entity. Okay, it has been represented in such a form. So it must be seen in such a form. In this way, you have to represent your strong entity. For example, I have created just before one particular entity here. That entity name is gas master. Okay, so if you want to represent that one, so here you'd like to GAS _MASTER. All capital letters must be taken into consideration while writing any data into this particular table. Okay, something like this. This is strong entity. Okay, so strong entity. If you look into the entity relationship diagram, obviously you have to specify whether it is strong entity or weak entity. Immediately you could identify, because so the line which is having with this particular entity will be solid line. So something like this, then that is called as strong entity. Whereas weak entity, opposite of so strong entity will be weak entity. So obviously, so you maybe give some kind of a definition here itself. So an entity which does have so its values by referring so other entities. Okay, by referring. Previously, without referring, so its values. So by referring with any other entity. Okay, without referring the okay, so it must be refer the values of other entity. So without referring its parent, it should not be enter any kind of data here. Without referring its parent, could not be enter any kind of data. Let me create one more table for you, and let us show something here. Set lines 100. Set this 50. Okay. Select everything from GAS _master. Okay, look at this. we have two people who are registered here to this particular gas agency, number 100 and number 101. These are the two people who are registered with the gas master here. Now let us consider gas transaction. Gas transaction in the sense you have to book a cylinder and they will be delivered somewhere else. Okay, so gas transaction. So create a table. Table name is GAS_TRAN transaction. So what are the components here? So gas_TRAN_ID, gas transaction ID. So which is number of some 5 or 6, however you could take, which is primary key. This must be primary key. And then book date, and which date they are trying to book out here. Book date, which is date, and the default SYS DATE is state. By default, it has been taken as state, and which is not null also. So not null also. Then followed by booking date. Okay, probably this could be enough, I think. Amount to be paid, AMT, amount to be paid, number of some 11,2, so which is not null. And who is booking this one? So we need to have who booked this particular thing here. So that is why CUST_NO, this customer number has been booked. So which is number of 5. So the same thing has been taken into consideration here. The same thing in the sense number of 5 here, number of 5. So references, to whom it has been referred here, references. So GAS_MASTR of so CUST_NO. Okay, so it has been taken into consideration, something like this. Now you could observe this particular table while enter some kind of data here. So it must be refer the parental table, that is gas master, because we have been created one relationship between these two here. Okay, these two have relationship, something like this we have been created here. Now look at this. So insert into table name is GAS_TRAN. Okay, values. Okay, let us consider. I'd like to take, because already we have given booking date as system date. So that is why, so GAS_TRAN_ID, comma. So booking date already system date has been taken, AMT, comma. So CUST_NO, customer number. So values, what those values we are supposed to take into consideration here in the sense, let me take all these values to be filled here. All these values to be filled here. Okay, so look at this ampersand. Let me take it as ampersand here. Ampersand transaction ID. Sorry, ampersand transaction ID. How much amount you are trying to pay. So that is also. And what is the customer ID? That is also. Let us consider this particular thing. While entering some kind of data, let us consider what are the error messages you may be get here. So 1000 is otherwise 1 is transaction ID. And amount will be 678 rupees for one cylinder. And the customer number is, let me consider, we do have two customers with us, that is Hari and Razu, having 100 and 101. Let me enter 105, for example. Okay, so it could not be allowed to enter this particular data because there is no parent key. There is no parent key. So if you want to enter some kind of data into this particular table, you must refer gas master. In gas master, 100 and 101 will be available. You must able to give only those two numbers to book the cylinder. Otherwise, it could not be accessible. Such kind of tables will be considered as weak tables or weak entities. While you are trying to enter some kind of data here, look at this. Let me enter some more data here. Number 1 again, amount will be, so 678 rupees again, 100. Yes, 100 is available with the parent, so therefore it has been created. Because it is always referring its parent, whether customer number is existed with the parent or not. If it is existed, then it could be. Such kind of entities are called as so weak entities. They are called as weak entities. Okay. So such kind of entities are called as weak entities. And how you can represent these weak entities in entity relationship diagram is here. So you have to represent them using the same rectangular box only, but a double line. A line will be two lines, something like this. Let me show you by taking the assistance of MS Word. Look at this. So let me take format shape, and here I'd like to consider like this. If situation will be seen in such a fashion, let me consider gas underscore TRANS. Look at this. So here, while enter some kind of data in gas master, you did not refer any kind of other tables. Whereas while enter gas transaction, you must be refer the values of gas master. If gas master does have some account number, otherwise a customer number, then only you could able to book. Otherwise, you could not book into. So this particular, you could not enter data into this particular gas transaction here. So that such kind of tables will be called as weak entities. Or such kind of entities are called as weak entities. These entities must be referred the values of its parent. Okay. And other entity, this entity is I'm unable to disclose you at this moment because this entity will be taken after taking some kind of attributes information. Of course, let me give you the diagram here. So associate entity will be displayed something like this. So represented something like this. So it could be defined on a relationship. On a relationship. So it could be seems like this. And this is called as associate entity. This is called as associate entity. After relationships and attributes, let me explain how the things are being. How the things are being in terms of the associate entity here. Where exactly associate entities will be existed. So for time being, we'd like to consider entity and strong entity and weak entity. Strong entity does have its own values. Weak entity has depends on other entity. Okay, values of weak entity must be depends on other entity. Okay, these are two different types of entities which are available with us. And of course, associate also there, but we need to know what is relationship. Then only we could able to explain what is associate entity. And let us discuss attribute. What is an attribute and how an attribute can be referred here. So an attribute, let me take like this here. So an attribute, so characteristic of an entity is known as an attribute. So one particular entity does have many number of characteristics, not exactly one. So many number of characteristics. How many number of characteristics will be there? As far as if you consider this particular student, let me take this particular student. Student does have, this entity does have many number of characteristics, something like this. So a student does have so his register number, REGD underscore NO, one characteristic or one attribute. And the second one is his name. So STUD underscore name. This is one more characteristic. And third one is his address of the student. And fourth one is so course join, which course he was joined here. So fourth one is which branch he was joined here. Branch joined, which branch was joined, and the date of so join, on which date he was joined, and which year he is studying, which semester he is studying, and then what is the fee, fixed fee, how much fee has been so fixed for him to pay the fee, something like this. We do have many, as many number of attributes or characteristics are available for one particular student, so I just before given something, a cow, a buffalo, something like this. How many legs are there for a cow? How many? So how it could be eat, and what are the points which we'd like to consider for this one? In the similar fashion, here also we do have several characteristics for one particular So entity, something like this here. All these things will be called as characteristics. Okay, everything will be considered as characteristic here. Then how could you represent this particular characteristic in terms of so entity relationship diagram? So an attribute could be represented with vowel shape, something like this. Vowel shape, something like this. Okay, so it could be associated with one entity. Okay, so something like this. If you take one particular entity, something like this, so it does have so one attribute, something like this. Attribute 1 and attribute 2 and attribute 3, something like this. In this way, you have to represent several number of attributes for one particular entity here, or one characteristic, second characteristic, third and fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth. Then how many kinds of attributes are there? Attribute in the sense it is a specific characteristic of one particular entity. Okay, one entity does have many number of characteristics. So it could be represented in this form. In this form, you could able to represent in this form. Then how many kinds of attributes are there? Attributes are very, very, very huge in number. Let me explain them. So types of attributes. So number one type, first one is simple attribute versus composite. Okay, second one is single valued versus multi-valued. Okay, third one is stored versus derived attribute, and fourth one is so key attribute. Okay, fifth one is so complex attribute. Sixth one is null attribute. These are 6 different kinds of attributes which are available with us. Okay, so simple versus composite, single valued versus multi-valued, and stored versus derived, and then key attributes, complex attributes, and null attributes. Okay, these are different kinds. Then here, what is simple versus composite? So here you please understand the simple, the single valued, and the store all are same because of second word. So here composite opposite word is simple. Multi-valued opposite word is single valued. Derived opposite word is stored. Because of the second category, we have to explain the second category so that we have taken its synonym. That is the only, I mean, for the explanation point of view, we have taken as synonym here. So that is the only point why we have taken these many number of so names here. Simple or single valued or stored. Everything is same. Everything is one another same. Okay. So first of all, let me explain. So let me consider simple attribute. Okay, an attribute which does have a single value, otherwise simple value. Attribute which does have its own or single or simple value is known as so simple attribute or single valued or derived. Either of these three will be same. Okay, you could not able to divide further. You could not able to divide further of this particular attributes, and such kind of attribute will be called as simple attribute, otherwise single valued or derived stored attribute. Oh, sorry. Here it is not derived; it is stored. I'm very sorry. Stored attribute. Stored attribute. Okay, so it doesn't have anything. So it could be represented as like as general form, that is like, okay, it could be represented as like a general form, something like this here, the similar fashion. So something like this here. It could be like this only. This is simple or single valued or stored. All of these could be having same kind of representation. There is no other representation which could be available here. Okay. Now, composite. What do you mean by composite here? Composite in the sense, so an attribute which does which can able to divide divide if you are further simple attributes. Okay, they can be able to split into many simple attributes. Such kind of attributes are called as composite attributes. I'll give you one example, then it is very easy to understand. Normally, while filling any kind of application, you could see, so any name, a name can be able to divide it into 3 different types of names. That is first name, so first name followed by second name, otherwise middle name, simply speaking, middle name, so followed by last name, something like this, last name. Okay, if you consider this one, so it is a composite attribute. If you consider address, if you're able to take into consideration of so address could also able to divide into many pieces here. First piece will be, piece number 1 will be, so door number is one piece, then followed by uh, mm, let me consider, so street is another value, and then followed by town, another one, then followed by district, another one, then followed by state, another one, pin code, another one. So all these things will be combinedly called as address here. All these things will be combinedly called as address here. Okay, an attribute, if you consider address, if you take into consideration of this address could able to divide it into as much as many number of pieces, and each piece will be different. Each piece will be different here. Okay, this each and every piece will be different here. Here also name will be first name, so middle name and last name. Every piece will be different value here. Such kind of different values could be taken into consideration. Then they are called as composite attributes, and these composite attributes will be represented like this. So this is actual attribute here. This actual attribute will be, divided into, this attribute will be divided into several number of pieces, like something like this. So here you could able to write here it is address, then here door number, so then here it is a street, then here it is a town, so then here it is town followed by a district, then here it is district, then here